Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a heart-wrenching yet deeply humane story, the story of a single mother named Ly Tu Quynh. A simple name, but behind it lies a resilient journey through days that seemed to offer no way out. She was an orphaned girl, raised by her grandmother in a small, crumbling house at the end of a narrow alley. Gwyn grew up on the last bit of love she had left in this world. But when her grandmother fell ill, one by one, their belongings were sold to pay for treatment. Until one day, her grandmother passed away, taking with her the only home Gwyn had ever known. From that moment on, Gwyn became homeless, without family, without shelter, without a future. What followed were endless nights of hunger, cold, and tears. She wandered from bus stations to wholesale markets, desperately looking for odd jobs to earn enough for a bite to eat. But fate had more cruelty in store. One day, she was deceived and assaulted. And soon after, she found out she was pregnant. Some told her she was foolish, why not get rid of the baby to spare herself the misery? But Gwyn simply replied, "This child is the last drop of my blood. The only reason I still have to keep going." From that moment on, her once lonely life became intertwined with a tiny heartbeat, opening a new chapter, one filled with hardship, but also with boundless love. The two of them roamed with no fixed place to stay. Some nights they slept at bus terminals, others on the grass by the river, or inside roadside tea stalls. Each day, Gwyn carried her child on her back, collecting bottles, scavenging scraps, even venturing into the forest to find bamboo shoots and firewood, anything to earn a few coins for milk. But with her own health deteriorating from long-term malnutrition, her body grew too weak to even produce milk. On days when her baby cried endlessly from hunger, all she could do was hold him tight and whisper helpless comfort. Yet despite all the suffering, she never once abandoned her child. She taught him his first words, how to bow politely to adults, how to say thank you when someone offered them a stale piece of bread. She taught him gratitude, even on days when they had nothing to eat. One day, Gwyn fainted in the middle of the market while holding her baby. People gathered, some sympathetic, others critical. A few tossed her small change, while others scolded her for begging and still choosing to have a child. But in that crowd, an old motorbike driver pulled over and handed her a bottle of water. Gwyn burst into tears, not because of the water, but because it had been so long since anyone had shown her a shred of kindness. The deepest wound Gwyn carried wasn't physical, it was the haunting sense that she no longer belonged in this society. She lived like a fallen leaf, drifting aimlessly in the wind, unnoticed and unwanted. And yet, she kept going, because she knew that if she collapsed, her child would be left with no hope at all. That morning, as the mist still clung to the damp forest leaves, Gwyn tied up her disheveled hair, fastened an old scarf around her waist, and carried her child on the journey ahead. The mother and child trudged step by step along the rugged red dirt path that led deep into the forest, a place no one dared venture unless truly desperate. But for Gwyn, it was her last refuge, a faint glimmer of hope to earn money for her baby's milk. It had been 3 days since they'd had a proper meal. The little girl in Gwyn's arms no longer cried out loud, just let out faint hiccups, like a fragile survival reflex. Her tiny hands clung tightly to her mother's shirt, her sunken eyes looking up at Gwyn in silent plea. In the forest, Gwyn gathered what little strength she had left to search for tender bamboo shoots. Every time she found one, her heart leapt with joy as if she had struck gold. Step by step, she ventured deeper, picking shoots while keeping an eye on the overgrown bushes along the path. When she spotted some wild edible herbs scattered nearby, she quickly bent down to collect them. She knew they were safe to eat, her grandmother had once taught her that. Starving and dizzy, Gwyn bit into the raw leaves, forcing herself to swallow just to keep going. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done testing her. As she followed a small stream in search of more shoots, Gwyn suddenly noticed something unusual. Growing from a rotting tree trunk were several bright red clusters of lychee mushrooms. Her heart skipped a beat. It had been a long time since she'd seen such rare and precious fungi. Selling them could mean enough money to buy high-quality milk for her child, maybe even a decent meal after days of scraping by. She hastily gathered the mushrooms and secured them tightly in her bamboo basket. Then she bundled up the bamboo shoots and herbs she had collected, tied them into a large bundle, and gently lifted her frail, sleeping child. With the heavy load on her back and hope in her heart, she began the trek out of the forest, trying to reach the market before noon. But the human body has its limits. Under the searing midday sun, just a few hundred meters from the trail that led to the village, Gwyn's vision began to blur. A wave of dizziness hit her like a blow to the head. Her knees buckled, and her entire body collapsed onto the ground, half covering her child. A weak cry echoed through the silent forest, a sound that could tear hearts apart. The baby sat under the blazing sun, gently nudging her unconscious mother. She didn't understand what was happening. Her mother didn't answer, didn't open her eyes, didn't hold her like before. With trembling hands, the child placed her fingers on her mother's cheek, sobbing in broken cries of hunger and thirst. Time stood still. No one knew that Gwyn and her child lay there, alone in the wild, next to bundles of bamboo shoots, herbs, and precious lychee mushrooms. There were no passing motorbikes, no footsteps, only sunlight, dried leaves, and the constant hum of insects signaling that noon was drawing near. Under the scorching midday sun, golden rays pierced through the canopy, casting a searing light deep into the forest. Officer's son, a forest ranger, was inspecting the scene of a freshly cut tree, his brows furrowed with concern. Traces of illegal loggers were becoming more frequent, fresh saw marks still fragrant with the scent of living wood, and a maze of markings etched into tree trunks. It felt as though the entire forest was being watched, inch by inch. As he radioed his superiors to request reinforcements for counting illegally felled trees, a faint yet persistent sound broke the silence, a child's cry. At first, Son thought he was hearing things. A child crying in the middle of the forest? More than 10 kilometers away from the nearest village? It seemed impossible. Yet the cry continued, feeble, trembling, a plea for help woven into the monotonous rustle of the jungle. With a sharp instinct that something was wrong, Son turned and hurried toward the sound. After slipping down a muddy slope and pushing through thick underbrush, he froze at the sight before him. A woman lay motionless on the dirt trail, her body covered in mud and sweat. Beside her, a baby wailed in anguish. The child was emaciated, her cheeks sunken, tiny hands groping at her mother's face, shaking her gently. Her eyes were bloodshot, panicked, a mix of hunger and thirst. Her lips were cracked and bleeding. The mother's face was pale, her breathing shallow, her body filthy with dirt. A purplish bruise marked her forehead where she had fallen. Son dropped to his knees, immediately checking the woman's pulse. Thankfully, her heart was still beating, weak, but steady. Without hesitation, he radioed for urgent backup and quickly took off his jacket to shield her body from the heat. He gently lifted the baby, whose body was featherlight. "It's okay now, sweetheart. I'm here. Your mom will be all right," he whispered, his throat tightening. As the rough pickup truck bounced along the trail out of the forest, Gwyn remained semi-conscious, and the baby had fallen asleep, exhausted after crying under the blazing sun. Officer's son kept one hand on the wheel, the other watching the rearview mirror. A strange feeling stirred inside him. This wasn't just a routine patrol anymore. Upon reaching the temporary ranger station, he lowered the car window and pressed a cool towel to Gwyn's forehead. A few moments later, her body twitched, and she let out a faint groan. Son exhaled in relief. Can you hear me? What's your name? Where do you live? I can take you home. Through her haze, Gwyn opened her eyes. Her lips were cracked, her voice barely a whisper. I don't have a home, and no one left in this world. That sentence made Sun pause. He stared at her gaunt face, as vague and lost as mist. No home. No family. Wandering the forest with an infant not yet a year old. This wasn't just a difficult situation, it was a life abandoned. Without further thought, he brushed aside hesitation and drove straight to his modest wooden house, a forest outpost that doubled as his residence in the remote highlands. The place was simple, but clean and safe enough for mother and child to rest. When Gwyn awoke the second time, she found herself lying in a warm bed. Her baby was beside her, wrapped in a blanket, his cheeks looking rosier than they did in the forest. The faint smell of hot porridge filled the air, accompanied by the bubbling sound of boiling water in the kitchen. Startled, she bolted upright. My baby, where's my baby? Don't worry, a calm, deep voice came from the doorway. Your child's sleeping. She ate a few spoonfuls of porridge and is doing much better. He stepped inside with a fresh bowl of porridge and handed it to Gwyn. She looked at him cautiously, her hands trembling as she took it, then broke down in sobs. Tears she had held back for so long now streamed freely, not from weakness, but because for the first time in a long while, she felt the warmth of human kindness. After finishing her meal and regaining her voice, Gwyn shared a brief glimpse into her past, a life marked by ellipses, filled with loss and injustice. She didn't speak much, but it was enough to make one's chest tighten. Sun sat silently for a while, then finally said, For now, just stay here a few days. Rest until you both recover. It's a bit remote, but peaceful. I'll take care of the rest. Gwyn gave a slight nod, her eyes still red but now reflecting a flicker of gratitude. Late afternoon. The deep crimson sunlight poured down the mountainside, casting a fiery glow over the moss-covered roof tiles. In the small wooden house nestled within the forest, a peaceful silence had settled after a tumultuous day. Gwyn and her child had fallen asleep after a warm bowl of porridge, temporarily escaping the hunger and exhaustion of the past days. Meanwhile, Sun quietly tidied up, arranging extra blankets for his unexpected guests. But the calm didn't last long. The roar of a motorbike echoed from the base of the slope. Then, familiar footsteps approached the porch. Sun paused. He looked up, slightly startled. You're back already? The man who stepped in had a strong build, a stern face, and sharp eyes. It was Back, Sun's older brother. Orphaned from a young age, Back had raised Sun single-handedly, playing the roles of brother, father, and friend all at once. Though currently serving in a remote Special Forces unit, Back always returned to this house during his short leaves. It was the only place that still felt like home. After setting his backpack down on the floor, Back's gaze caught the slightly ajar door of the inner room. There, he spotted a woman sleeping, her hair draped loosely, her face gaunt but gentle. Beside her lay a child, not yet a year old, nestled in a thick blanket. He turned sharply to Sun, his tone cold and clipped. Who is she? And that child? Sun looked slightly uneasy, but his voice remained calm. It's a long story. I found them in the forest today. She fainted from hunger and exhaustion, carrying her child. No home, no family. If I hadn't brought them here, they might not have made it. Back crossed his arms and stood silently. His face betrayed no emotion, but those who knew him well would recognize the telltale signs. Beneath that composed surface was a mind constantly assessing risk. You brought a stranger into your house? With a child? While you're still on active duty? You think this is charity work? Son exhaled. I understand your concern, but I've already checked. There's nothing suspicious. She's just a desperate mother. I couldn't walk away. Son and his older brother back sat facing each other in the dim flicker of an oil lamp. Outside, the forest grew darker by the minute, with only the constant whisper of insects filling the silence, like murmurs foretelling a coming storm. Not from the sky, but from the conversation smoldering between two men. Back poured a cup of tea, stayed quiet for a while, then said in a low voice, I understand why you brought her here. If it were me, I might not have had the heart to leave her behind either. But, son, you can't let her stay here. Son looked up, his eyes firm. Just for a day or two. She's only just regained consciousness, and the baby still has a fever. They have nowhere else to go. Do you really think they would survive the night if I hadn't helped? Back placed the cup down, his tone sharpening. Right. But this isn't a shelter. You're a police officer. This is a ranger station, not a charity house. What if something happens? What if people accuse you of abusing your position to harbor a stranger? Have you thought about the consequences? Son clenched his fists, his eyes flashing with anger, though he tried to remain composed. She's a victim, not a criminal. I checked, no criminal record, no red flags. All I want is to give them a place to rest for a couple of days. Once they recover, I'll contact the local authorities to seek help. Back stood up and walked over to the window, gazing into the quiet night. He sighed. Son, I'm not heartless. Believe me, I've seen more suffering than you can imagine. But compassion must have limits. You help once, what about the next time? If this gets discovered, you'll be the first to face disciplinary action. And what happens to the mother and child then, when you're no longer in a position to help? Son remained silent. Inside him, a storm raged. On one side, principles, protocol, the very real warnings from a brother shaped by experience. On the other, humanity, the pleading eyes of a desperate mother, swallowing her tears just so her child might live one more day. Back returned to the table. He pulled out his wallet, placed a stack of cash on the table. Tomorrow, I'll drive her to the commune office. This should be enough for a few nights at a guest house, and some food. As for you, let's pretend this never happened. Don't let your emotions pull you away from your duty. Son looked at the money, then toward the faint shadow of the child behind the thin curtain. His lips moved, as if to speak, but the words caught in his throat. Dawn broke gently, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the trees in front of the house. The air was fresh and crisp, but Gwyn's heart felt heavy, like a storm was coming, not in the sky, but within. She stood silently by the doorframe, eyes gazing far down the narrow path that led out of the ranger's post. In her hands was a neatly folded bundle of old clothes. Inside were a few things Son had prepared the night before, some baby formula, a bit of dried porridge, and a soft towel for her child. She knew, she couldn't stay. Back had said it plainly, without sugarcoating. I understand your situation, but I can't let you and your baby stay here. My brother is young, and he lives alone. If people see you coming and going, especially with a child, there will be talk. Son is a police officer. He can't risk his image over a moment of sympathy. He placed a stack of cash in front of her. Take this. It'll get you a place to stay for a few nights. Think of it as our last gesture of help. Gwyn bowed her head, a tight knot forming in her chest. She didn't cry, but the way her fingers trembled as they gripped her child's hand said more than words ever could. Thank you, but I can't accept it. I understand. I'll leave now. And with that, she bowed quietly, gently cradled her sleeping child, and stepped through the gate in silence. Meanwhile, Son had been tidying up in the backyard. When he came back inside and saw the empty room, he rushed out, just in time to see Gwyn's silhouette shrinking under the soft morning sun, her gait unsteady, as if her very fate were faltering. "Gwyn!" She stopped, turned around. Son ran toward her, holding out the old cloth hat he had washed the night before. He handed it to her, voice low but filled with sincerity. "The sun's strong today, wear this so you don't get burned." She took it, gripping the brim tightly, lips pressed into a faint line. Son looked at her for a long moment, then slipped some money into her hand. "Take this. It's not a gift. Think of it as a loan. If one day you can repay it, great. If not, that's okay too. But, if things ever get worse than they are now, come back. This house will still be here. I'll still be here." Gwyn looked at him. Her eyes no longer held fear or shame, only quiet gratitude and a profound sadness. "Thank you. I'll remember." Then she turned away, holding her child close, and walked out the gate. No one knew where she would go. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. All that remained was the image of a woman like Gwyn, pushed to the edge by life, yet still walking with quiet dignity. And a mother's love that burned as fiercely as any flame. Dawn broke gently, the first rays of sunlight filtering through the trees in front of the house. The air was fresh and crisp, but Gwyn's heart felt heavy, like a storm was coming, not in the sky, but within. She stood silently by the doorframe, eyes gazing far down the narrow path that led out of the ranger's post. In her hands was a neatly folded bundle of old clothes. Inside were a few things Son had prepared the night before, some baby formula, a bit of dried porridge, and a soft towel for her child. She knew she couldn't stay. Back had said it plainly, without sugarcoating. "I understand your situation, but I can't let you and your baby stay here. My brother is young, and he lives alone. If people see you coming and going, especially with a child, there will be talk. Son is a police officer. He can't risk his image over a moment of sympathy." He placed a stack of cash in front of her. "Take this. It'll get you a place to stay for a few nights. Think of it as our last gesture of help." Gwyn bowed her head, a tight knot forming in her chest. She didn't cry, but the way her fingers trembled as they gripped her child's hands said more than words ever could. "Thank you, but I can't accept it. I understand. I'll leave now." And with that, she bowed quietly, gently cradled her sleeping child, and stepped through the gate in silence. Meanwhile, Son had been tidying up in the backyard. When he came back inside and saw the empty room, he rushed out, just in time to see Gwyn's silhouette shrinking under the soft morning sun, her gait unsteady, as if her very fate were faltering. "Gwyn!" She stopped, turned around. Son ran toward her, holding out the old cloth hat he had washed the night before. He handed it to her, voice low but filled with sincerity. "The sun's strong today, wear this so you don't get burned." She took it, gripping the brim tightly, lips pressed into a faint line. Son looked at her for a long moment, then slipped some money into her hand. "Take this. It's not a gift. Think of it as a loan. If one day you can repay it, great. If not, that's okay too. But, if things ever get worse than they are now, come back. This house will still be here. I'll still be here." Gwyn looked at him. Her eyes no longer held fear or shame, only quiet gratitude and a profound sadness. "Thank you. I'll remember." Then she turned away, holding her child close, and walked out the gate. No one knew where she would go. No one knew what tomorrow would bring. All that remained was the image of a woman like Gwyn. Pushed to the edge by life, yet still walking with quiet dignity. And a mother's love that burned as fiercely as any flame. After leaving Sun's house, Gwyn carried her child and walked along the winding dirt path out of the forest. The sun had risen high, its scorching rays burning her already sun-baked skin from days under the open sky. In one arm she held her child, in the other, a bag of lingji mushrooms, forest bamboo shoots, and some wild herbs. She made her way to a small roadside stall near the commune market, hoping to sell them for a bit of money, just enough to stay alive. Fortunately, an herbal medicine buyer passing by noticed the precious mushrooms and stopped to ask. After a short round of bargaining, Gwyn managed to sell both the mushrooms and bamboo shoots. The amount wasn't much, but it was enough to make her exhale in relief. Adding in the money Sun had given her that morning, she quickly bought a few small packs of baby formula, some instant porridge, and a bit of food. The two of them found a quiet corner under a tree near the edge of the market. They sat down on the ground and shared their first full meal in days. Gwyn fed her child spoonful by spoonful, tears welling in her throat. Each eager bite from her son tore through her heart. He was so hungry, and yet he didn't even cry. Has he already learned to endure? But as the sun began to set, that brief moment of peace was replaced by a painful question. Where will we sleep tonight? No shelter. Not enough money for a rented room. Gwyn once again held her child and wandered the dirt path toward the distant coffee plantations. The fading sun bathed the hills in red. The mountain wind stung her cracked lips dry. She walked and walked until she saw a makeshift shack, built of corrugated metal and rotting wood, deep in a plantation field. No door. No one around. Inside, only an old hammock and a few sacks used for fertilizer. She gently pushed open the broken wooden panel and stepped inside. Laying her child in the hammock, she sat with her back against the wall, curling up from the mountain chill. That night, mother and child fell asleep in silence, not from peace, but from pure exhaustion. The next morning, the sharp barking of dogs and the slapping sound of flip-flops shattered Gwyn's fragile sleep. A middle-aged woman, the owner of the plantation, stormed in. Her sun-darkened face and sharp eyes scanned Gwyn and her child. Who are you? Who let you in here? This is my land, not a place for strangers. Startled, Gwyn quickly stood up, holding her child tightly, and bowed her head politely. I'm sorry. Last night, we had nowhere else to go. It was dark. I was just hoping to stay for a night or two. I'll work to repay you. I just need a safe place to sleep with my baby. The woman waved her hand, voice cold as steel. Absolutely not. This is my property. You want to stay, pay rent. No money, get out. I can't afford to feed anyone else. Despite Gwyn's desperate pleas, her voice hoarse from anxiety, the woman remained unmoved. Angrily, she stormed forward, grabbed the bag of belongings, and hurled it outside. Out. Take your child and leave. I don't want to wake up and find strangers sleeping on my land. The sound of items crashing to the ground echoed sharply. The baby bottle, just bought, flew across the dirt, rolling and rattling. The baby in Gwyn's arms let out a piercing scream of fear. Gwyn bent down, hastily picking up each scattered item, tears streaming down her face, too fast to wipe away. She didn't protest. She just clutched her child tightly and quietly gathered every broken fragment of hope someone had thrown away. Along the dusty red road, the mother and child walked once more, cast out from another temporary shelter. The sun rose high. Their frail silhouettes slowly disappeared behind rows of lush green coffee plants, No home. No refuge. No one reaching out. Only a mother's love, the last thread keeping them from collapsing. After leaving Sun's house, Gwyn carried her child and made her way along the winding dirt road out of the forest. The sun was already high in the sky, its scorching rays burning her skin, already darkened from days of exposure. With her child in one arm and a bag of lingji mushrooms, forest bamboo shoots, and wild herbs in the other, she headed toward a small roadside stall near the commune market, hoping to sell what she had gathered for a bit of money, just enough to survive. Fortunately, an herbal medicine buyer passing by spotted the rare mushrooms and stopped to ask. After a bit of bargaining, Gwyn managed to sell the mushrooms and bamboo shoots. The amount wasn't much, but enough for her to breathe easier. Combined with the money Sun had given her that morning, she quickly went into the market and bought a few small packs of baby formula, some instant porridge, and a little food. The two of them found a quiet corner under a tree near the edge of the market and sat down for their first full meal in days. Gwyn spooned porridge into her child's mouth, and with each eager bite, her throat tightened. He's so hungry, and yet he didn't even cry. Has he learned to endure already? But as the sun began to set, that brief moment of relief was replaced by a harsh question. Where will we sleep tonight? No shelter. Not enough money for a rented room. Once again, Gwyn picked up her child and followed a dirt path leading toward the distant coffee fields. The setting sun painted the sky red, and the mountain wind dried her cracked lips. She walked and walked, until she saw a makeshift shack, built of rusty tin and rotting wood, hidden deep within a plantation. No door. No one around. Inside was an old hammock and a few fertilizer sacks. She gently pushed the broken wooden panel aside and stepped inside. She laid her child on the hammock, then leaned against the wall, curling up in the cold night air of the mountains. That night, mother and child slept in silence, not from peace, but from sheer exhaustion. The next morning, loud barking and the slap of sandals on concrete shattered Gwyn's shallow sleep. A middle-aged woman, the plantation owner, stormed in. Her sun-worn face and piercing eyes scanned Gwyn and the baby. Who are you? Who let you sleep here? This is my land, not a place for strangers. Gwyn quickly stood up, holding her child and bowing politely. I'm sorry. We had nowhere to go last night. It was dark. I just hoped to stay for a night or two. I can find work and repay you. I only need a safe place for my child to sleep. The woman waved her hand sharply, her voice cold as steel. Absolutely not. This is my land. If you want to stay, pay rent. No money, get out. I'm not feeding anyone else. Though Gwyn pleaded, her voice hoarse with worry, the woman remained unmoved. Frustrated, she stormed forward, grabbed Gwyn's bag, and flung it outside. Leave. Take your child and go. I don't want to wake up and find strangers sleeping on my land. Objects clattered loudly as they hit the ground. The baby bottle she had just bought rolled across the dirt. The child in Gwyn's arms cried out in fear. Gwyn bent down, picking up each item in silence, tears streaming down her cheeks. She didn't resist. She just held her child tightly and quietly picked up every piece of shattered hope tossed aside by someone else. Once again, on the red dirt road, the mother and child walked, cast out from yet another temporary refuge. The sun climbed higher. Their frail silhouettes slowly disappeared behind rows of coffee trees. No home. No shelter. No open arms waiting. Only one thing remained, a mother's love, the last thread keeping them from falling. They kept walking beneath the scorching midday sun, their tiny figures fading into the distant rows of trees. Gwyn's thin legs wobbled beneath her, but she held her child tightly, as if letting go would make everything fall apart. The child's faint cries blended with the dry mountain wind, a sorrowful melody echoing across the wilderness. Gwyn's eyes remained fixed on the ground, but within them swirled a storm of darkness. She didn't know where she was going. No home. No relatives. Nowhere to lean on, only the fragile strength pushing her forward. And yet, even in despair, she whispered, "Mommy's okay. Mommy will never leave you." Behind them, the endless red road stretched on, dust rising with each heavy step, as if fate itself was testing the final limits of her endurance. But where will Gwyn's journey lead? And what about Sun, the forest ranger, the man who once reached out to save her? Will he return in time to change everything? Find out in the next episode.